what we did yesterday. I think rather than me going over every single thing, me kind of introducing these units and then giving you some resources to kind of review some stuff that we've discussed in class. I think that's the best way to go about it. It saves you, from having to hear me talk the entire period. And also, I mean, guys, this is not the end all be all of reviews. Okay. For those of you not taking the AP test, this is just getting a really easy notebook check. For those of you that are taking the AP test, think of this as a sample. You're looking over some material, you're looking at some resources, you're seeing where things are. Yeah, you're getting a few notes down of things that you need to study later on. But really, this is just kind of exposing you to the things that you will need to study at a later date. Again, AP test is May the 10th, Monday, May the 10th. If you're taking it, you got to study outside of class. We're going to be doing stuff between now and then to help get you ready. But ultimately, it does take some work. It does take some dedication. I'm showing you some resources, but there's a lot of other things out there. Various videos on the AP Classroom site. You got Heimler on his site. There's a bunch of people that do stuff like this. So look at this as a sample of some of the things you could study, kind of, to prepare you for what you will really study later. But before we get to that, just a couple reminders of grades coming up. Like I said, I'm trying to front load grades. Okay. By the end of this week, I think we'll have like 3 or 4 daily grades. We'll also have 3 test grades. That's crazy. But I did that for a reason. The last 6 weeks is always kind of nuts. Okay, there's STAR testing, there's AP testing, there's extracurricular activities. A lot of kids are in and out. So rather than us all be like super stressed at the very end of the year, how are we going to make up all this stuff? We're going to get the bulk of our grades done, between last week and this week. There will be a few more grades, but for the most part, they're going to be minor grades, daily grades. We'll have some extra credit opportunities. There's going to be ways to raise your grade, but I kind of want everybody to know where they stand within the next week or so. That way, if we're not quite where we want to be, especially for the semester, you can try to figure out some things that you do maybe or can do maybe to help improve your grade. All right, so that's kind of the deal. So things coming up this week. First, extra credit AP classroom quiz over Unit 9 globalization. Always got to look up there. Um, Very similar to the material. It is the material that was covered in your project, depending on how you did on it. Hopefully you went over that stuff. 24 questions. You have a 24-minute time limit. If you can finish within the time limit for every question you get correct, I'll give you half a point. That ain't half bad. On Thursday, we do have notebook check number 2, the last notebook check of the year, which is pretty cool. That is going to combine with your notebook check from last Friday for your 3rd test grade, probably your final test grade, short of like the semester exam. Again, both of those are really easy. The one from Friday, Cold War notes, and then notes over those Heimler history videos. This notebook, it's all notes over these units. Again, other than unit 1 and 2, which you don't need much for those, it's just kind of whatever you wrote down. But for every unit, okay, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, I need at least 5 things from that unit. 5 things that you can jot down, hopefully, if you're taking the AP test, things that you need to study later. If you're not taking the AP test, it can pretty much be any 5 things. You're mainly showing me that you reviewed the material that I'm asking you to. That should be a very easy daily grade. Should also factor into that very easy test grade. I'm trying to help you guys out. Then on Friday, after we're done with all this review stuff, we do have a periodization quiz. Pretty easy stuff. I'm going to give you statements, these different historical events, and all you have to do is fit them into the correct time period. It'll be open book, open notes, I don't think I'm going to put a timer on it, although it is something you should try to finish in class on Friday because it is due before midnight. If you get it done and you turn it in on time, that's a key. Just for me wanting to help people, you will get an extra 10 points on test grade. All right, that is pretty easy. Just doing what you're supposed to do, I'm going to hook you up. You turn it in late, hey, you get nothing other than whatever you get on the periodization quiz with some points deducted because it's late. But if you turn it in on time, bless you, I'm going to throw 10 points on test grade. That's pretty sweet. Finally, retakes for the DCA that we did last week, DCA 5, those are open. If you requested one, it is open. You've got between now and Thursday night to get those in. After Thursday, I'm closing it back down. and the retake opportunity will be gone. That being said, if you want to retake it, if you got less than a 70 in the grade book and you want to retake it, you certainly can, but you've got to let me know because I need to go in there and individually unlock that for you. So just kind of keep that in mind. Last thing, AP test prep stuff. We're still doing the tutorials this Thursday, next Thursday. We also have 2 opportunities left really for AP mock exams. It's only the in-person ones at this point. You have one this Thursday, 4/29 from 5 to 9. And then you got one this Saturday from 8 to 12. I believe both those are going to be in the CTHS cafeteria, but you do need to sign up in advance, at least 24 hours in advance. So with that being said, let's kind of go over this real quick. If you will open up the PowerPoint and open up the curriculum guide, let's talk about what is going on today. Very similar to what you did yesterday, hopefully. Although there is one thing I'm going to kind of take away. So same basic thing. Okay, we're going to look at Unit 5, Unit 6, Revolutions and Consequences of Industrialization. We're dealing with the time period of 1750 to 1900. Revolutions is more your political revolutions and the Industrial Revolution itself. Okay, so be thinking about all the things that go along with that. Unit 6, Consequences of Industrialization, that's mainly imperialism. Those European countries, those industrialized countries, going elsewhere in the world, conquering, colonizing, exploiting, using these places, largely to gain resources, to create new markets to sell their products, and exploit the people that live there as a cheap form of labor. So again, 1750 to 1900, I want you to go through the curriculum guide for this unit. Okay, and again, when you're going through the curriculum guide, you don't have to read everything word for word. When you get to each little topic, like the Enlightenment, okay, you don't have to read the thematic focus, but no, this deals with culture. Always read, though, pretty carefully the historical developments and any sort of illustrative examples you see. Illustrative examples, guys, technically the College Board says we don't have to teach every single one, so you'll notice some of these is like, yeah, we talked about that, but maybe we didn't talk about the third thing. That's okay. I would advise even the stuff we didn't cover, maybe you give a gander if you can. But again, on the curriculum guide, all I'm asking is that you look at the historical developments, the illustrative examples, and as you go topic by topic, flip back to the PowerPoint. Look at the slide that deals with like 5.1, the Enlightenment. There's going to be some pictures. There's going to be some maps, some stuff, some visual representation of what's in the curriculum guide. Hopefully that'll help jog your memory. And based on those 2 things alone, you should be able to take some good notes. For today, because this is a little bit lengthier, you don't necessarily have to go to the fiveable side. Now, if you're taking the AP exam, eventually, yeah, you need to go to the fiveable side. You need to look at all those topics, kind of get the summaries, try to jog your memory, okay? But for in-class stuff today, really, if you just want to use the curriculum guide and the PowerPoint, that should be more than enough to give you at least 5 bullet points over each unit. So let's talk about these. Let's give you a quick introduction. Unit 5, Review, Revolution, 1750 and 1900. Again, it's always structured the same. I'll give you some context. I'll give you some events. I'll give you some trends. So here is the context. Revolutions, what's leading into it? Well, the Columbian Exchange in the preceding time period increased movement of products, ideas, people, and disease around the world. It also happened to increase global population. It's during this period of 1750 and 1900 that industrialization really comes about, and that was as a result of increased wealth and demand. Again, a lot of wealth was created in Europe specifically, based on colonization overseas, based on the slave trade, unfortunately. Okay, so you had the accumulation of wealth in some of these countries. You had an increased population, because of the Columbian Exchange and all the foods brought in. Well, now you need more stuff. You need more clothing. You need more consumer goods in general. So people started to invest. They started to figure out more efficient ways to create these products. That's really the birth of industrialization. It gets into the political revolutions a little bit, but industrial revolution is the overarching topic, just because you could argue it had such a global impact. European states practice imperialism for more materials and access to markets. Okay, that's something you see as a result of industrialization. Political shifts occurred as a result, led by rebellions and revolts. The political revolutions, like the American Revolution, the French Revolution, that's going on the same time as the Industrial Revolution. So they do very much inform one another. And more people migrated because of economic opportunity and political turmoil. We had people moving in this period more than ever, maybe because of better transportation, but a lot of it was because of jobs. I mean, people in areas that maybe didn't have many opportunities, or maybe there was like a war going on in the country, or maybe people lacked some basic fundamental freedoms. You started to see them migrate to cities, migrate to areas that had the jobs, that had the industry. Sometimes they did well, sometimes not so much. We know that a lot of these industrial cities were pretty messed up, at least for a while. So some significant events to associate with this time period. 1762, Rousseau publishes The Social Contract. Jean-Jacques Rousseau is one of the leaders of the Enlightenment, kind of that, I don't know, that philosophical era when people were really questioning their place in society, how government should operate, what sort of natural born freedoms we have. Big jumping off point to those political revolutions that this time period is known for. 1765, James Watt invents the steam engine. This is going to be very, very important in all sorts of different technological innovations, factories and locomotives and steamships. I mean, the steam engine really was one of the first major inventions that allowed industrialization to spread. 1776, 11 years later, the American Revolution begins. 1789, the French Revolution begins. 1801, the Haitian Revolution begins. 1815, all those other Latin American revolutions begin. 1848, the Seneca Falls Convention, organized by feminists and abolitionists. We didn't really get much into this. We did talk about a little bit of the feminist movements, but this was all about, equality for women, looking for voting rights here in the United States. You do see kind of a global feminist movement come about. It's kind of an offshoot of the Enlightenment as well. And then finally, 1868, you got the Meiji Restoration. That's when Japan looked at what was going on in places like China, where they were getting carved up into spheres of influence, and they said, hey, we need to industrialize. It was very much state-sponsored, where the government, rather than like private business, really was the driving force in getting them modernized, industrialized, about as quickly as possible. If you see Meiji on the AP exam, it has something to do with Japan kind of moving out of that old school kind of samurai feudal system and getting more with the modern times. So what are some major trends? Industrialization. Consumer goods become more affordable and available. Railroads increase the circulation of goods, people, and ideas. States could industrialize through private investment, like you saw in Britain and the United States, or state investment. Like Russia and Japan, the government themselves took the initiatives to try to kind of sponsor these modernization efforts. The demand for raw materials increases. New sources are acquired by steamships going all around the globe. Capitalism prevailed in Western Europe, but made life hard for many. Harsh working conditions led to labor unions for collective power. The rich got richer. Unfortunately, the poor got poorer. Women gained more economic power with opportunities in factories. People organized movements to advocate for government protections, and voting rights expanded as a result of organized progressive movements. So this is kind of your intro map. And this will be true. It's the same map for the next unit, Unit 6. But even just looking at this, it shows you the main states, because we always want to know, who are the dominant players in each period of history. It shows you the main empires, especially those overseas empires that are out there doing some imperializing. Shows you some of the political revolution, shows you some commercial characteristics, raw materials that people were after. And finally, one of the big themes of this unit is global migration, people moving all over the world for a variety of reasons, freedom, opportunity, you name it. From there, it goes by topic, 5.1, 5.2, so on and so forth. Again, read over the curriculum guide over that topic, glance back at this material. Hopefully that'll help to make the connections a little bit more clear. There's a decent amount here, but again, don't get overwhelmed, because the curriculum guide, you're only looking at the historical developments and the illustrative examples. Then you're just glancing over these maps to kind of make some further connections. Obviously, getting ready for the AP test, you need to do more than this, but this is a good starting point. Some key vocabulary from our revolutions unit. The Enlightenment, empiricism, social contract, nationalism, suffrage, feminism, democracy, liberalism, industrialization, the second industrial revolution, factory system, fossil fuels, the Meiji era, mercantilism, capitalism, laissez-faire, limited liability corporations, transnational businesses, labor unions, socialism, communism, and consumerism. Obviously, there's more vocab. There is. And if you look in your notebook, you got more. But I tried to pick the stuff that was most represented in the curriculum guide itself, or at least very much connected to what was in the curriculum guide itself. Same time period, next unit, 1750 to 1900. So the first unit, revolutions, is about political revolutions, but it was also very much about all the changes brought about by the Industrial Revolution. Well, there's consequences that go with that. And a lot of it does tie to European imperialism, them going to places like Africa and Asia, trying to get raw materials and whatnot, and it changes the landscape of the world. This is the time period where European nations become the wealthiest, most powerful nations in the world, and almost everybody else is getting exploited in one way or another. So what's our context here? Well, Britain, France, the British, the Dutch, East India companies, Portugal, and Spain all began this period with colonial possessions in the Americas, Africa, and Asia. Industrial developments such as mass-produced goods, steamships, railroads, and more effective firearms allowed states with them to expand their power. The British abolition of the slave trade in 1807 contributed to the resurgence in indentured servitude. And Charles Darwin's publication of The Origin of Species in 1859 contributed to justifications for imperialism later in the 1800s. So what are some significant events? 1839 to 1842, the First Opium War. 1857, the Great Rebellion in India, aka the Indian Mutiny, aka the Sepoy Mutiny. 1859, Charles Darwin's Origin of Species. 1868, the Kimberley Diamond Strike, South Africa. 1869, the Suez Canal opens. 1884, the Berlin Conference divides most of Africa between European states. 1894 to 1895, the First Sino-Japanese War. That's Japan and China. 1898, the Spanish-American War. And 1901, the White Australia Policy. Most of these things we addressed at some point. And guys, on the significant events, you don't have to know exact dates, but you need to be able to associate these things with the correct time period and also kind of the order of events. I mean, that is worth knowing just because you could see like some cause and effect questions. What are some of the major trends? Well, European, American, and Japanese states expanded overseas. Racist justifications for this imperialism encouraged more expansion. Indigenous people did oftentimes fight back. New states were formed through nationalism. Good example, Germany and Italy. There was armed resistance in Africa and Asia. Religion sometimes united these resistors. State power contributed to a more globalized capitalist system that benefited businesses from imperialist centers and impoverished laborers in colonized areas. Before 1800, European countries were not more powerful than advanced societies in Asia and did not control any territory in Africa outside of armed trading posts on the coast. But as time progresses in the 1800s, I mean, that all changes. China and India deindustrialized, meaning that they weren't making nearly as much stuff as they were before because the factory-made goods from Europe were way cheaper. European, U.S. manufactured goods really replaced a lot of things in China and India that they were known for making. Textiles, ships, things of that nature. Man, industrialization changed that. European imperialists forced colonized people in Africa to produce and sell industrial products at disadvantageous prices. They wanted new markets. They wanted cheap labor. Europeans desired African resources, rubber, palm oil, diamonds, gold, to name a few. There was economic imperialism. Imperialist governments interfered in the economies of other countries to allow businesses to profit. Examples, the spheres of influence that European powers carved up in China, the British investment in the Suez Canal, the American investments in the Hawaiian sugarcane plantations, eventually kind of aiding the overthrow of Hawaii's native government. We had settler colonialism. Imperialist settlers took land from indigenous peoples. Euro-Americans in the United States, especially, our conflict with Native Americans. The British in Australia and New Zealand. Parts of Africa, the French in Algeria. And finally, one of the big themes kind of goes back to Unit 5 as well, migration. With all this improvement in technology, the steamship, locomotives, canals, making trade and travel easier, more and more people are moving around for opportunities. And again, you get your little intro slide, and you got all sorts of stuff that follows. Key terms and names. I didn't pull a whole lot. There's a lot I could have put, but I tried to, again, stick to stuff that was more or less right from the curriculum guide. Imperialism, social Darwinism, Berlin Conference, settler colonies, diplomacy, export economy, economic imperialism, spheres of influence, ethnic enclave, Chinese Exclusion Act, the White Australia policy, and of course, Banana Republic. So your job today, like I said, I wouldn't worry so much about Fiveable today because you got a decent amount to kind of scan through, but use the curriculum guide, read over each topic, again, just focus on historical developments and illustrative examples. And then once you're done with the topic, once you've read over it, maybe taken some notes, go look at that slide. I think it's going to make a few of, the things that you need to do a little bit more clear. Tomorrow we will open up, or I will open up the final little review PowerPoint curriculum guide 7, 8, and 9, 1900 to the present. The good thing is we just finished that, so I think we can get through that pretty quickly. You will have tomorrow and Thursday to kind of finish up the very small amount of notes I'm asking you to take. On Thursday, notebook check's going to be due before midnight. Again, that's the last one of the year. We got the periodization quiz on Friday. Any questions about anything? Okay, we'll get to work. Good luck. If you do have questions as you're moving along, let me know. Again, I'm asking for 5 bullet points over each unit. It could be any 5 things that kind of stand out, things that you feel maybe you need to study more. Okay, but this is not the real review. You got to use this stuff and Fiveable and some of the other resources I've shown you ultimately to kind of figure out your own way to best get prepared for the AP exam. I'm here to help, but man, it's on you at this point. You got to be willing to study. You got to be able to put in the work. If you can do that, you got a good chance of passing this thing. So just kind of keep that in mind. Let me know if you need anything or if there's anything I can help with.